The woman who allegedly shot and killed her husband was given a $50,000 bond in Jackson Municipal Court today. Police say around 11:30 yesterday morning, 30-year-old Rashawn Wallace shot and killed 33-year-old Damian Reed after he allegedly attacked her. It happened on Brook Hollow Drive in Jackson. Wallace is charged with murder.
One click, one friend request, and then she pulled the trigger. It was February 23, 2025. A quiet morning in Jackson, Mississippi. Inside a home on Brook Hollow Drive, 30-year-old Rashawn Wallace is going about her day. She's a nurse, a mother, someone people trust with their lives. Her husband, Damian, is checking her phone, scrolling through her social media like he always does. Then he sees it, a friend request she sent to someone. His face changes. The argument starts small, but within minutes, it explodes into something deadly. Their child was in the house, watching, listening. Rashawn grabs a gun. She fires a warning shot, hoping to stop him, but Damian keeps coming, so she pulls the trigger again. This time, the bullet finds its target. Now here's where it gets crazy. This trained nurse, who just shot her own husband, immediately drops to her knees and starts doing CPR on him. She calls 911, begging them to hurry. But before we get into this unbelievable story, hit that like button if you're ready for another dark case that'll leave you questioning everything about trust, social media, and how fast love can turn deadly. Because what happened next will shock you to your core. Welcome to our channel. Please like this video, share, and subscribe to this channel to help raise awareness and spread caution. Let's begin. Rashawn Wallace was 30 years old and worked as a licensed practical nurse in Jackson, Mississippi. This wasn't just any job. Being a nurse means people put their lives in your hands every single day. Patients trusted her. Doctors relied on her. She had the training to save lives, to stay calm under pressure, to make quick decisions when everything was falling apart. But Rashawn wasn't just a healthcare worker. She was also a wife and mother. She lived with her husband, Damian Reed, on Brook Hollow Drive, in what looked like a normal family home. They had at least one child together, and from the outside, they probably seemed like any other couple trying to make it work. Damian Reed was 33 years old. He was a father, a husband, someone who shared a home and a life with Rashawn. But there's something important you need to know about Damian. He had access to Rashawn's social media accounts. He could see her messages, her friend requests, her online activity whenever he wanted. Now, some couples share passwords. Some people think that's normal in a relationship, but when you really look at it, this kind of access can become something much darker. It means one person is always watching, always checking, always looking for something wrong. Think about your own phone right now. How would you feel if someone could go through it any time they wanted? If they could see every message, every like, every person you added as a friend? For most people, that would feel like living under a microscope. This is exactly what was happening in Rashawn and Damian's relationship. He wasn't just her husband. He was also her digital watchdog. Every click she made, every person she connected with online, he could see it all. Their home on Brook Hollow Drive might have looked peaceful from the street. Maybe neighbors saw them coming and going, taking care of their child, living what seemed like an ordinary life. Rashawn probably left for her nursing shifts, helping sick people get better. Damian probably had his own routine, his own responsibilities, but inside that house, there were cracks that nobody could see. The kind of cracks that happen when trust breaks down, when one person feels like they need to monitor everything the other person does, when privacy becomes a battle instead of a basic right. Rashawn was someone who saved lives for a living. She knew how to handle emergencies, how to think fast when someone was in danger. She was trained to help people, to heal them, to make them better. This was a woman who chose a career built around caring for others. Damian was the father of her child, the man she shared her life with. But he was also someone who felt the need to keep tabs on her every online move. Someone who would get upset about a friend request, something most people wouldn't think twice about. Neither of them probably woke up on February 23rd thinking their lives would change forever. Rashan probably got ready for another day of helping patients. Damien probably started his morning like any other. Their child was safe at home with them. But underneath the surface of this seemingly normal family, something dangerous was building. The constant watching, the lack of trust, the feeling that every online interaction was being judged, it was all creating pressure that would soon explode. And when it did, Rashan's medical training would kick in. But this time, instead of saving a life, she would be the one who took it. It seems crazy, right? Someone dies over a simple click on Facebook. But this wasn't really about social media at all. It was about jealousy and what happens when trust completely breaks down. Here's what we know happened. Rashan sent a friend request to someone on social media. That's it. Something millions of people do every single day without thinking twice about it. But in her house, this simple action became deadly because Damien had access to all her accounts. Now let's be real about this for a second. When your partner has your passwords and can check everything you do online, that's not normal relationship behavior. That's surveillance. That's one person treating the other like they can't be trusted to make basic decisions about who they talk to. Think about how this actually worked in their daily life. Every time Rashan got on her phone, she knew Damien could see everything later. Every person she added, every message she sent, every post she liked, he would know about it. That's not love, that's prison. But here's the thing about digital surveillance in relationships. It never actually fixes the real problem. If someone doesn't trust you, giving them access to your phone won't make them trust you more. It just gives them more things to get upset about. They'll find problems where none exist. They'll turn innocent conversations into evidence of betrayal. This is exactly what happened with that friend request. We don't know who Rashan added or why. Maybe it was someone from work. Maybe it was an old friend. Maybe it was just someone she met once and thought seemed nice. For most people, adding someone on social media means absolutely nothing. But for Damien, seeing that friend request was like finding proof of something terrible. In his mind, this wasn't just Rashan connecting with another person. This was her doing something behind his back, something she was trying to hide from him. The psychology behind this kind of behavior is actually pretty simple. When someone constantly monitors their partner's online activity, it's usually because they're insecure, jealous, or trying to maintain control. They convince themselves they're protecting the relationship, but what they're really doing is destroying it, piece by piece. Every time they check those accounts, they're sending a message. I don't trust you. I think you're lying to me. I think you're going to cheat on me or leave me. And when you treat someone like they're guilty of something they haven't done, eventually the relationship becomes toxic for everyone involved. Social media makes this so much worse because everything leaves a digital trail. Before smartphones, if your partner talked to someone at work or smiled at someone at the store, you might never know about it. But now, every interaction can be tracked, screenshotted, and analyzed. Dating apps, friend requests, likes on photos, comments on posts, all of this becomes evidence in the court of a jealous partner's mind. They start building cases against you using your own online activity. They turn your phone into a weapon against your relationship. And here's the scariest part. The person being monitored often starts to believe they're doing something wrong. They begin to second-guess every online interaction. They start deleting messages that are completely innocent just to avoid arguments. They stop talking to friends because it's easier than dealing with the interrogation later. This is what was happening to Rashan. She was living under constant digital surveillance, and that morning, Damien found something he decided was worth fighting about. A friend request. Something that should have taken 2 seconds and meant nothing became the spark that lit a deadly fire. The really tragic part is that this kind of monitoring never prevents cheating or lying. It just creates an atmosphere of suspicion and control that kills relationships from the inside. When you don't trust your partner enough to let them have basic privacy, you're not protecting your relationship. You're destroying it. Have you ever had a partner check your social media? Let me know in the comments what you think about privacy in relationships. because what happened next shows exactly how dangerous this kind of control can become. That friend request wasn't the real problem. The real problem was a relationship where one person felt they owned the other person's entire digital life. And on February 23rd, that toxic dynamic finally exploded. February 23rd, 2025. Rashawn Wallace probably woke up thinking about her nursing shift, maybe checking on their child, going through the normal routine that families do every day. She had no idea that before the sun was high in the sky, her entire life would be destroyed. We don't know the exact time when Damian Reed picked up Rashawn's phone or logged into her social media accounts, but at some point that morning he was scrolling through her activity like he always did. Maybe he was looking for something specific, or maybe this was just his daily routine, checking up on his wife like she was a suspect in a crime she hadn't committed. Then he saw it. The friend request. Someone new on her list, someone he didn't recognize or approve of. In that moment, whatever was going through Damian's head, it wasn't good. This wasn't just a random person Rashawn had connected with. In his mind, this was evidence of betrayal, of secrets, of his wife doing something behind his back. The confrontation started immediately. We can only imagine how it began. Maybe Damian walked up to Rashawn holding her phone, demanding to know who this person was. Maybe he was calm at first, asking questions that sounded reasonable but had an edge to them. Or maybe he came in hot, already angry, already convinced that this friend request meant something terrible. Rashawn probably tried to explain. It was just a friend request. It didn't mean anything. She wasn't hiding anything from him. But when someone is determined to find guilt, innocent explanations sound like lies. When someone has already decided you're betraying them, the truth becomes just another story they don't want to hear. The argument got louder, more intense. Their child was somewhere in the house, probably hearing their parents' voices, getting angrier and angrier. Kids always know when something bad is happening, even when adults think they're hiding it. That little one was about to witness something that would change their life forever. As the fight escalated, Damian's behavior became more aggressive. According to what we know from the case, he started approaching Rashawn in a way that made her feel threatened. This wasn't just yelling anymore. This was physical intimidation. Maybe he was getting in her face, maybe he was backing her into a corner, maybe he was making moves that scared her enough to think she was in real danger. Rashawn made a decision that would haunt her forever. She got a gun. Now, we don't know where this weapon was kept in the house, but she had access to it, and in that moment of fear and anger, she grabbed it. Here's where things get really important to understand. Rashawn fired a warning shot first. This wasn't someone who immediately went for deadly force. This was someone who was scared enough to get a weapon, but still hoped she could stop the situation without anyone getting hurt. She was trying to send a message. Back off, leave me alone, this needs to stop right now. But Damian didn't stop, even with a gun in his wife's hands. Even after hearing that warning shot, he kept coming toward her. Maybe he didn't believe she would actually shoot him. Maybe he was too angry to think clearly. Maybe he thought he could take the gun away from her. We'll never know what was going through his mind in those final seconds. What we do know is that Rashawn felt threatened enough to pull that trigger a second time, and this shot didn't miss. The bullet hit Damian in the stomach and he went down. Now here's where this story gets really heartbreaking and really strange. The moment Damian hit the floor, Rashawn's training as a nurse kicked in. The same woman who had just shot her husband immediately dropped to her knees and started trying to save his life. Think about how crazy that is. 1 second she's holding a smoking gun. The next second, she's doing CPR on the man she just shot. Her hands, which had just pulled a trigger, were now pressing on his chest, trying to keep his heart beating. The same person who caused the injury was now desperately trying to fix it. This tells us something really important about what was happening in Rashawn's mind. She wasn't a cold-blooded killer who wanted her husband dead. She was someone who felt so threatened that she used deadly force. But the moment the threat was over, her instinct was to heal, not to hurt. While she was performing CPR, she called 911. Can you imagine that phone call? "I just shot my husband. Please send help. I'm trying to save him." The dispatcher probably thought they were hearing things wrong. How do you process a call from someone who just caused the emergency they're reporting? Rashan kept working on Damien, using every skill she had learned in nursing school and on the job. She knew how to do CPR properly. She knew how to check for vital signs. She knew what paramedics would need to know when they arrived. But she also knew, probably better than most people, how serious a gunshot wound to the stomach could be. All of this was happening while their child was still in the house. That little one had heard the argument, heard the gunshots, and was now watching their mother try to save their father's life. The trauma that child experienced in those minutes is something they'll carry forever. The paramedics arrived as fast as they could, but it was too late. Despite Rashan's efforts, despite her medical training, despite her desperate attempts to undo what she had done, Damien Reed was pronounced dead at the scene. The police arrived and found a scene that probably confused them at first. Here was a woman covered in her husband's blood, not because she was trying to hide evidence, but because she had been trying to save him. Here was a trained medical professional who had just committed murder and then immediately tried to prevent it from being fatal. Rashan was arrested right there in her home, with her child watching, with her husband's body still on the floor. The same hands that had tried to save Damien's life were now being put in handcuffs. The same voice that had called 911 for help was now being read her rights. In the span of maybe 30 minutes, Rashan Wallace went from being a wife and mother having a normal morning to being a widow and a murder suspect. Her child went from having two parents to having one parent dead and the other one being taken away by police, all because of a friend request. All because of a relationship where trust had been replaced by surveillance, where love had been replaced by control, where a simple social media connection became grounds for a deadly confrontation. The morning of February 23rd changed everything for everyone in that house, and the ripple effects of those few terrible minutes would be felt for years to come. When the Jackson police arrived at the Brook Hollow Drive home, they walked into a scene that probably left even experienced officers shaken. There was Damien Reed's body on the floor. There was Rashan Wallace covered in blood from trying to save the man she had just shot. And somewhere in that house was a child who had just watched their entire world fall apart. Police chief confirmed what everyone feared. Yes, there was a child present during the shooting. That little one had witnessed everything. The argument, the gunshots, their mother desperately trying to bring their father back to life. The child wasn't physically hurt, but the emotional damage was already done. Rashan didn't resist arrest. She didn't try to run or hide what had happened. The gun was right there. The evidence was clear. She had called 911 herself. There was no denying that she had pulled the trigger that killed her husband. But as the handcuffs went on, Rashan started telling her side of the story. This wasn't murder, she claimed. This was self-defense. Damien had attacked her first during their argument about the social media friend request. She had felt threatened, scared for her safety, and she had acted to protect herself. The police took her to the Hinds County Detention Center, where she would wait to find out what charges she would face. The woman who had spent her career helping people heal was now sitting in a jail cell, accused of taking a life instead of saving one. When the charges came down, they were serious. Murder. Not manslaughter, not self-defense, murder. The prosecutors looked at the evidence and decided that what happened in that house wasn't a woman protecting herself. In their view, it was a wife who killed her husband during a domestic dispute. Rashan's bond was set at $50,000. For some people, that might seem low for a murder charge. For others, it might as well have been $1 million. Either way, it meant that Rashan could potentially get out of jail while she waited for her trial, if she could come up with the money. The story hit the local news fast, and then it spread beyond Jackson. A nurse shooting her husband over a Facebook friend request? That's the kind of headline that grabs attention. People couldn't believe it. How does something so small turn so deadly? How does a healthcare worker, someone trained to save lives, end up taking one? The community reaction was mixed. Some people felt sorry for Rashawn, thinking she must have been pushed to her breaking point. Others couldn't understand how anyone could justify shooting their spouse over social media. The case divided people who knew the couple and people who just heard about it on the news. For Rashawn, the legal battle was just beginning. She would need lawyers, money for her defense, and somehow she would have to convince a jury that she was the victim, not the criminal. She would have to explain how a trained nurse, someone who took an oath to do no harm, ended up doing the ultimate harm to the person she was supposed to love most. Meanwhile, their child was left without both parents, one dead, one in jail. Family members would have to step in, social services would get involved, and that little one would have to somehow make sense of a world that had been completely destroyed in a matter of minutes. The woman who used to save lives was now fighting to save her own future. Now that we know the basic facts of what happened on February 23rd, we need to dig deeper into the most important question in this case. Was Rashawn Wallace defending herself, or did she commit murder? This isn't as simple as it might seem. Self-defense cases are some of the most complicated in the legal system, especially when they happen between married couples behind closed doors. There were only 3 people in that house: Rashawn, Damian, and their child. One of them is dead, one is facing murder charges, and one is too young to testify about what they saw. Let's start with Rashawn's claim that she acted in self-defense. During her court appearance, she told the judge that Damien attacked her first during their argument about the social media friend request. She said she felt threatened enough to grab a gun and protect herself. But what does attacked actually mean in this situation? We know from the police reports that Damien was approaching Rashawn in a way that made her feel threatened. But was he actually going to hurt her, or was this just a heated argument that got out of hand? This is where the case gets really complicated, because we only have Rashawn's word about what Damien was doing in those final moments. Here's what makes this case different from a lot of domestic violence situations. Rashawn fired a warning shot first. This detail is huge, and it can be interpreted in 2 completely different ways. The prosecution will probably argue that the warning shot proves Rashawn wasn't in immediate danger. If she had time to fire into the air or the ceiling, they'll say, then she had time to run away, call for help, or find another solution. They might claim that firing a warning shot shows she was thinking clearly and making calculated decisions, not acting out of fear for her life. But Rashawn's defense team will tell a different story. They'll say the warning shot proves she didn't want to kill Damien. She was trying to scare him, trying to get him to back off without hurting him. When that didn't work and he kept coming toward her, she had no choice but to shoot him directly. They'll argue this actually supports her self-defense claim because it shows she only used deadly force as a last resort. The truth about domestic violence is that it often follows patterns that people on the outside can't see. Victims learn to read their abuser's moods, their body language, their tone of voice. They develop a sense of when things are about to get really bad. Sometimes this means they act to protect themselves before the physical violence actually starts. We know that Damian had access to all of Rashawn's social media accounts. This kind of surveillance and control is a classic sign of an abusive relationship. When someone monitors their partner's every online move, it's usually part of a bigger pattern of jealousy and control. The question is, how far did this control go in their relationship? The role of firearms in domestic disputes makes everything more dangerous. Statistics show that having a gun in the house during a domestic violence situation increases the chance of someone dying by 5 times. But in this case, we don't know who owned the gun or how Rashawn got access to it. Was it something she grabbed in a moment of panic? Or was it something she had planned to use? What makes this case so hard to judge is that both sides have valid points. Damien was unarmed when he was shot. He was in his own home, arguing with his wife about something that happened on social media. From one perspective, this looks like a domestic dispute that turned deadly when someone grabbed a gun. But from another perspective, this looks like a woman who was living under constant surveillance and control, who felt threatened enough to arm herself and who tried to avoid killing her husband before ultimately shooting him in what she believed was self-defense. The presence of their child in the house adds another layer of complexity. Did Rashawn feel like she needed to protect not just herself but also her child? Or does the fact that she fired a gun with a child in the house show poor judgment that goes against her self-defense claim? This case forces us to ask difficult questions about domestic violence, self-defense, and the split-second decisions people make when they're scared. Was Rashawn a victim who had no choice but to defend herself? Or did she cross the line from victim to killer? The answer will ultimately be decided by a jury, but it's not as clear-cut as either side wants us to believe. The tragic story of Rashawn Wallace and Damian Reed teaches us important lessons that could save lives. While we cannot change what happened on February 23, 2025, we can learn from their story to help prevent similar tragedies. The biggest warning sign in Rashawn and Damian's relationship was his need to watch and control her every move. Damian had access to all of Rashawn's social media accounts. He checked her phone regularly. He monitored who she talked to online. This behavior is called surveillance, and it is never okay in a healthy relationship. Many people think this kind of watching means someone cares about them, but it does not. When your partner checks your phone without permission, follows your online activity, or gets angry about your friendships, these are red flags. These behaviors show a lack of trust and respect. In healthy relationships, partners trust each other. They do not need to spy on each other or control who the other person talks to. If someone is watching your every move, that is not love. That is control. And control often leads to worse behavior over time. Damian's surveillance of Rashawn created tension in their home. She probably felt like she could not have normal friendships or conversations without him getting upset. This kind of pressure builds up over time and can explode into violence. Social media caused the final fight between Rashawn and Damian. A simple friend request turned into a deadly argument. This shows how important it is for couples to talk about social media boundaries before problems start. Couples should discuss what feels comfortable to share online. They need to agree on privacy settings and friend requests. Most importantly, they should talk about trust and jealousy related to social media. Some questions couples should ask include, is it okay to have friends of the opposite sex on social media? Should we share passwords with each other? How do we handle it when someone flirts with us online? What if an ex-partner tries to contact us? These conversations might feel awkward, but they are much better than fighting about social media later. When couples set clear boundaries together, both people know what to expect. This prevents misunderstandings and jealousy. Rashawn made a friend request that seemed normal to her but upset Damian. If they had talked about social media boundaries earlier, this tragedy might never have happened. One of the most frightening parts of this case was how quickly a heated argument became deadly. When there is a gun in the house during a domestic fight, the chances of someone dying go up by 5 times. Rashawn fired a warning shot first, trying to scare Damian away, but when that did not work, she shot him in the stomach. The whole situation probably took less than 5 minutes from start to finish. Families who own guns need to think carefully about gun safety, especially during relationship problems. When people are angry, scared, or emotional, they do not always make good decisions. Having easy access to a weapon can turn a bad argument into a deadly situation. Some safety steps include keeping guns locked up separately from ammunition, removing guns from the home during relationship conflicts, and getting training on gun safety and conflict resolution. If you are in a relationship where there are guns in the house, and your partner shows signs of anger, jealousy, or control, this is an extremely dangerous situation. You should reach out for help immediately. The impact of this case goes far beyond what we see in the headlines. For the child at the center of this story, the trauma will likely stay with them for years to come. No child should ever have to experience what they went through. The healing process will be long and difficult. The families involved have been torn apart. Trust has been broken in ways that may never fully heal. Parents in the community now look at their neighbors differently. They wonder who they can really trust with their children. This case has changed how people think about safety in their own neighborhoods. But this story matters for bigger reasons, too. It shows us how important it is to listen when children try to tell us something is wrong. Too often, adults don't take kids seriously. We need to create safe spaces where children feel comfortable speaking up about abuse. This case also reminds us that predators can be anyone. They don't look like monsters from scary movies. They're often people we know and trust. Teachers, coaches, family friends, neighbors. We need to stay alert without becoming paranoid. The community has started healing, but it will take time. New safety programs have been put in place. Parents are having harder conversations with their kids about body safety. Schools are training staff to spot warning signs of abuse. If this story touched you, please remember, like this video, share it, and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us.